Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars stretch past the viewport. The ship had been traveling for 3 weeks now, searching for new worlds to explore. The crew was getting restless, but Jake knew that. Space exploration required patience. Captain called out Officer Lisa Campbell from her station. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her console. Lisa was the ship's science officer, and she had a good eye for spotting unusual things. "What kind of strange? It looks like a distress signal, sir. Very weak, coming from the asteroid field near the Kepler 442 system." Lisa frowned at her screen. "The signal pattern is unlike anything in our database." Da-da-woot, da-da-da. Jake studied the readings. The signal was definitely artificial, but it wasn't from any human ship. "Can you tell how far away it is?" "About 2 days at current speed. The signal is very faint, like whatever is sending it is almost out of power." Jake thought for a moment. They were supposed to be mapping new star systems, not responding to distress calls. But something about this felt important. "Change course. Take us to that signal." "Sir, shouldn't we report this to command first?" asked his second officer, Commander Rick Sullivan. "We'll report it when we know what we're dealing with," Jake replied. "If someone is in trouble out there, 2 days might be too long to wait." For help, the New Horizon changed direction, heading toward the asteroid field. As they got closer, the signal became stronger. Lisa worked with Dr. Helen Wright, the ship's language expert, to try to decode the message. "It's definitely a distress call," Helen said after several hours of work. "But the language is completely unknown. The computer can't translate it at all." "Keep trying," Jake told her. "Even if we can't understand the words, we might be able to understand the meaning." 2 days later, they reached the asteroid field. The rocks were huge, some as big as small moons. The New Horizon moved carefully. Between them, following the signal to its source. "There," said Lisa, pointing at her screen. "I've got a visual." On the main screen, they could see a ship floating between 2 large asteroids. It was unlike any vessel they had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, with a strange blue-green color that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Definitely not human," said Rick. "I've never seen anything like it. The alien ship was badly damaged. Large holes had been torn in its hull, and it was drifting without power. No lights were visible, and there was no sign of life." "Are there any life signs?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments. "Hard to tell. The ship's hull is made of some material that blocks our sensors. But the distress signal is still coming." From inside, Jake made his decision. "Get me a boarding team. Lisa, you're in charge of the science side. Tony, you handle security." Sergeant Tony Garcia nodded. He was the ship's head of security, a tough Marine who had seen action on 3 different worlds. "How many people should I bring?" "Just you for now. We don't want to look threatening. Get Dr. Amy Peterson ready. If there are survivors, they might need medical help." An hour later, the boarding team was ready. Jake, Lisa, Tony, and Dr. Peterson put on their spacesuits and took a shuttle over to the alien ship. The shuttle's lights showed the damage more. Clearly, whatever had attacked this ship had been very powerful. "Look at these blast marks," Tony said, examining the hull. "This wasn't an accident. Someone shot this ship full of holes." They found an airlock that was still working. The door opened with a strange hissing sound, and they stepped inside. The air was thin and cold, but it was breathable. Their suits showed it was safe to remove their helmets. Inside the ship, everything was quiet. The walls were smooth and curved, with a soft glow that came from the material itself. But the glow was fading like a dying fire. "This way," Lisa said. Following her scanner, the life signs are coming from deeper in the ship. They walked through corridors filled with strange equipment. Everything was designed for beings that were roughly human-sized, but the shapes were all wrong. Controls were placed in odd positions, and the doors were taller and narrower than human doors. "Whatever built this ship, they're not like us, Doctor," Peterson observed. They found the first survivor in what looked like a medical bay. The being was lying on a bed that molded itself to the shape of its body. It was roughly human in shape, but its skin looked like it was made of crystal. The crystal skin was dull and gray, and the being wasn't moving. "Is it alive?" Jake asked. Dr. Peterson checked her medical scanner. "Yes, but barely. Its life signs are very weak." As they watched, the being's eyes opened. They were large and completely black, like looking into deep space. When it saw the humans, it made a sound like breaking glass and tried to move away. "Easy," Jake said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "We're here to help." The being stared at them with obvious fear. It said something in a voice like wind chimes, but none of them understood the words. "Helen was right," Lisa said. "This language is completely unknown." They found more survivors in other parts of the ship. All of them were weak and dying. Their crystal skin was dull and gray, and they barely reacted when the humans approached. But they were all afraid. "There are 23 survivors," Dr. Peterson reported. "All of them are in critical condition. They're suffering from radiation poisoning, malnutrition, and severe injuries." Jake looked around the dying ship. These beings, whatever they were, had been through something terrible. Their ship was shot full of holes. They were barely alive, and they were terrified of strangers. "We're taking them with us," he decided. "Sir," Rick's voice came through the radio from the New Horizon. "Did you say we're taking them?" "That's right. Get the medical bay ready for alien patients, and clear out Cargo Bay 3. We're going to need room for all of them," Captain Tony said quietly. "We don't know anything about these people. They could be dangerous." Jake looked at the nearest survivor, a female whose crystal skin was so dull it was almost white. She was trying to sit up, but she was too weak. She saw him looking. She made another sound like breaking glass. "Look at them, Tony. They're dying, they're scared, and they need help." Jake made his decision. "We're not leaving them here." To die, Dr. Peterson began preparing the survivors for transport. It was difficult work, since she didn't understand their biology. But she could see that they were suffering, and that was enough. One by one, they moved the survivors to the shuttle. The beings were too weak to resist, but they watched the humans with obvious fear and confusion. The last survivor they found was different from the others. She was in what looked like the ship's command center, lying on the floor beside a control panel. Her crystal skin still had some color in it, a faint blue-green that matched the ship's hull. When she saw the humans, she didn't try to run. Instead, she spoke in her wind chime voice, pointing at herself and then at the other survivors. "I think she's their leader," Lisa said. Jake knelt beside the alien woman. "We're going to help you," he said slowly, hoping she would understand. His tone, if not his words. "All of you." The woman stared at him for a long moment. Then she said something else, her voice filled with what sounded like surprise. "I wish we could understand what she's saying," Jake said. "Give me time." Helen's voice came through the radio. "Working on it." They moved the leader to the shuttle last. As they were leaving the alien ship, Jake took one last look around. Whatever had happened here, these people had been through hell. But they were alive, and now they had a chance to stay that way. Back on the New Horizon, the medical bay was in chaos. Dr. Peterson and her team worked frantically to keep the survivors alive. The alien biology was strange, but the basics were the same. They needed food, water, and medical care. "How are they doing?" Jake asked. "Better than expected," Dr. Peterson replied. "Their bodies are responding to our treatments. I think we can save most of them." Jake nodded. He had made the right choice. Whatever these beings were, wherever they came from, they deserved a chance. To live, he didn't know it yet, but that choice would change everything. 3 days had passed since the New Horizon picked up the alien survivors. The ship's medical bay was working around the clock. Dr. Amy Peterson had barely slept. She tried to understand the strange biology of their guests. "Their bodies are fascinating," she told Captain Jake Morrison during their morning briefing. "Their skin is made of some kind of living crystal. It changes color based on their emotions and health. When they're sick or scared, it turns gray. When they're healthy, it should be bright blue-green." Jake looked through the medical bay windows at the survivors. Most of them were still gray, but a few were starting to show hints of color. "Are they getting better? Slowly? The radiation?" "Damage was severe, but human medicine seems to work on them. It's like our biology is similar enough that our treatments help." Dr. Peterson smiled. 3 of them sat up yesterday. In Cargo Bay 3, engineer Ben Rodriguez was working with his team to make the space more comfortable for the aliens. They had built sleeping areas and installed better lighting. The aliens seem to prefer softer light than humans. They don't like bright lights, Ben explained to Jake. When we turned up the lights yesterday, they all covered their eyes and made those glass-breaking sounds, so we dimmed everything down. Jake nodded. Good thinking. We want them to feel safe. The biggest challenge was communication. Dr. Helen Wright had been working day and night to understand the alien language. She had recordings of everything they had said, but it was slow work. I'm making progress, Helen told Jake. Their language is completely different from anything human. It's based on sound patterns that our ears can barely hear. But I think I'm starting to understand some basic words. The breakthrough came on the 4th day. Helen was working with the alien leader, the one they had found in the command center. The woman was sitting up now, her crystal skin showing patches of pale blue dot. Helen had been pointing at objects and saying their names in English, hoping the alien would copy her. Water, food, light, help. The alien watched but didn't respond. Then Helen pointed at herself and said clearly, Helen. The alien stared at her for a long moment. Then she pointed at herself and made a sound like wind through crystal caves. Veltar. Helen's heart jumped. Veltar, is that your name? The alien nodded slowly. Then she pointed at Helen and tried to copy the sound. Helen. Yes, Helen said, smiling. Helen, and you are Veltar. Word spread quickly through the ship. They had made contact. Real contact. Over the next few days, Helen and Veltar worked together to build a basic vocabulary. It was hard work. The alien sounds were difficult for human throats to make, and human sounds seemed strange to alien ears. But they kept trying. Veltar was clearly intelligent. She learned human words quickly and tried to teach Helen words in her own language. Helen called her people the Cathera, because that was the word Veltar used when pointing at the other survivors. As communication improved, Veltar began to tell their story. It came in pieces, with Helen having to guess at meanings she couldn't understand. But slowly, a terrible picture emerged. The Cathara came from a group of peaceful worlds far from human space. They were artists and scientists who had never known war. Their crystal skin let them share emotions with each other, making them a very close and caring people. Then the Devourers came. Veltar's crystal skin turned dark gray when she spoke about them. The Devourers were machines and living things. Mixed together, they came from nowhere, attacked without warning, and showed no mercy. They eat worlds, Veltar managed to say in broken English. I take everything, kill everyone. The Kithara had tried to talk to them to make peace. The Devourer's only answer was destruction. World after world fell. Billions died. We ran, Veltar said, her skin now almost black with remembered pain. Some ships escaped. We looked for safe place, but the Devourers followed. They hunted the refugee ships across space, destroying them one by one. Veltar's ship was the last one from her world. 23 survivors out of millions. We thought we'd die alone, Veltar said. No one helped, no one cared. Jake felt angry when he heard the story. Who were these Devourers to destroy entire worlds? Who gave them the right to hunt down refugees? But Veltar wasn't finished. She looked at Jake with her large black eyes and said something that made Helen gasp. What did she say? Jake asked. Helen looked shocked. She said the Devourers are coming this way, toward human space. Jake felt cold. How does she know? Helen spoke quickly with Veltar, then turned back to Jake. The Devourers move in a pattern. They eat everything in one area, then move to the next. The Cathera worlds were just the beginning. They're heading toward Earth. That evening, Jake called a meeting of his senior officers, told them everything Veltar had shared. So were. Next on the menu said Commander Rick Sullivan grimly. Maybe, Jake said, but we're not like the Cathera. We have weapons. We have armies. We know how to fight. Against machines that can destroy entire worlds, asked Dr. Peterson. We'll find a way, Jake said firmly. We always do. Meanwhile, in the cargo bay, Something amazing was happening. The Cathara survivors were getting stronger. They were starting to notice how the humans treated them. Dr. Peterson checked on them several times a day. Always gentle and caring, she brought them food and water, even though she didn't know exactly what they needed. She smiled at them, spoke softly, tried to make them comfortable. Engineer Ben Rodriguez had noticed that the aliens liked music. He had set up speakers that played soft, peaceful sounds. When he saw how much they enjoyed it, he spent his free time finding new music for them. Sergeant Tony Garcia, who had been suspicious at first, now helped carry the weaker aliens to the medical bay for treatment. He was always careful and gentle, treating them like they were his own people. The Cathara had never seen anything like it. In their world, strangers were usually feared or ignored, but these humans were taking care of them like family. Veltar watched it all with growing amazement. She had heard stories about humans before the Devourers came. The other races in the galaxy said humans were dangerous and unpredictable. They were young and violent, not to be trusted, but these humans had saved her people. They gave them food, medicine, and safety. They asked for nothing in return. Why? Veltar asked Helen one day, "Why you help us?" Helen thought about how to answer in simple words. "Because you needed help," she said finally. "But we strangers, we not your people." Helen smiled. "Doesn't matter. You were hurt and alone." "Enough." Veltar stared at her. "In Cathara culture, you helped your own family and clan. Strangers were someone else's responsibility. But humans seemed to think differently." Over the following days, Veltar watched the humans more carefully. She saw how they worked together without being forced. She saw how they treated each other with respect, even when they disagreed. Saw how they made decisions based on what was right, not just what was safe. Most amazing of all, she saw how they treated the Cathara survivors as equals, not as prisoners or slaves or burdens, but as people who deserved care and respect. "People strange," Veltar told Jake one day. "Strange how?" Jake asked. Veltar struggled with the English words. "You help people you not know. You risk danger for strangers." "Why?" Jake thought about it. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone has to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves." Veltar's crystal skin flickered with colors Helen had never seen before. Later, Helen would learn that those colors meant wonder and hope. "Maybe," Veltar said slowly, "maybe humans different than stories say." "What do the stories say?" Jake asked. "Say humans dangerous? Say humans take what they want? Say humans not care about others?" Jake smiled. "Well, the stories got some things wrong." That night, Veltar spoke to the other survivors in their own language. For the first time since the rescue, the sound wasn't filled with fear and pain. It was filled with something new. Hope. The humans had found them wounded and forsaken. But instead of turning away, they had chosen to help. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy wasn't as dark and hopeless as it had seemed. Maybe there were still people worth saving it for. The alarm started screaming at 0300 hours ship time. Captain Jake Morrison was pulled from sleep by the harsh sound echoing through the corridors of the New Horizon. He was dressed and running to the bridge in less than 2 minutes. "Report," he called out as he entered the command center. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts," said Lieutenant Bobby Chen, who was on night watch. "Big ones, sir, coming from the direction we rescued the aliens." Jake looked at the sensor display. Dozens of red dots were moving toward them through space. The ships were huge, much larger than the New Horizon. "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. "At current speed, about 6 hours," Bobby replied. Commander Rick Sullivan arrived on the bridge, still putting on his uniform. "What's the situation?" "Company," Jake said grimly. "Get everyone to battle stations and wake up Veltar. We need to know if these are the Devourers." 10 minutes later, Veltar was on the bridge. Her crystal skin had turned completely black. When she saw the sensor readings, she spoke rapidly in her own language, her voice like breaking glass. "What is she saying?" Jake asked Helen, who had been called to translate. Helen listened for a moment, then turned pale. "She says those are Devourer ships. A full hunting fleet?" Veltar grabbed Jake's arm, her crystal fingers surprisingly strong. She spoke urgently in broken English. "You must run. Take your people. Leave us. They want us, not you." Jake shook his head. "We're not leaving anyone behind. You not understand?" Veltar said desperately. "They kill everything. Your ship too small? You cannot fight them." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But we're going to try." The bridge communications panel lit up with an incoming message. The voice that came through the speakers was like the sound of metal grinding against stone. "Human vessel. This is Prime Harvester Nexus 7 of the Consumer Fleet. You have taken property that belongs to us. Turn the organic units for processing, and you will be allowed to leave unharmed." Jake looked around the bridge. His officers were waiting for his answer. Veltar was staring at him, her black eyes wide with fear and something else. Hope Jake activated the communications panel. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. Those aren't property. They're people under our protection, and you can go straight to hell." The silence that followed lasted for nearly 30 seconds. Then the metal voice came back, colder than before. "Your refusal has been noted. Prepare for harvest." The communication ended. Jake turned to his crew. "You heard them, all hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." The New Horizon was not a warship. It was an exploration vessel with light weapons meant for defense against pirates or wild animals. Against a full Devourer fleet it should have been hopeless. But Jake Morrison had not become a starship captain by giving up when things looked bad. "Rick, take us into the asteroid field. If we're going to fight, we'll use every advantage we can get." "Yes, sir," Rick replied, taking his position at the helm. The ship moved quickly toward the dense field of rocks where they had found the Cathera. Ship. Behind them, the Devourer fleet was getting closer. Lisa scanned those ships. "I want to know everything about them." Science officer Lisa Campbell worked at her station, gathering data on the approaching enemy. "Their big, Captain. Smallest one is 3 times our size. Their hulls appear to be part metal, part organic tissue. Energy readings are off the charts. Weapons? Multiple plasma cannons, some kind of energy beam weapons, and what looks like boarding pods." Jake nodded. It was as bad as he had expected, but he had dealt with bad odds before. "Tony, get our weapons ready. Everything we have." Sergeant Tony Garcia was already at the weapons control station. "Missiles armed and ready, sir. Point defense systems online. But Captain, our weapons aren't designed for this kind of fight. It will have to be creative."
The first Devourer ships entered the asteroid field 30 minutes later. They moved carefully, their ugly bulks sliding between the floating rocks like giant metal sharks. Jake watched them come.
"Wait for my command." The lead Devourer ship was the size of a city block. Its hull was covered with what looked like mechanical tentacles and organic growths. It was the most disgusting thing Jake had ever seen. "Fire," Jake ordered. The New Horizons. Missiles shot out from their tubes, streaking toward the enemy ship. They hit the hull and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the light faded, the Devourer ship was still there. The missiles had barely scratched its surface. "Their armor is too thick," Tony reported. "Our weapons aren't powerful enough." Devourers fired back. Plasma bolts the size of cars flew through space toward the New Horizon. Rick threw the ship into a sharp turn, using a large asteroid for cover. The plasma bolts hit the rock instead, turning tons of stone into glowing vapor. "That was too close," Rick muttered. More Devourer ships were entering the field now. New Horizon was surrounded. "Captain," said Bobby from his station, "we're getting multiple targeting locks. They're preparing to fire everything they have." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was scared but determined. They weren't going to run, even though they all knew this was probably their last fight. Then Veltar spoke up. She had been standing quietly in the corner, but now she stepped forward. Her crystal skin was no longer black. It was glowing with a deep blue light. "Captain Jake," she said in her careful English, "we help you fight." "What?" Veltar turned to her. "Helen." She spoke rapidly in her own language, gesturing toward the enemy ships. "She says the Cathara know things about Devourer technology," Helen translated. "Weaknesses. Ways to hurt them." "What kind of weaknesses?" Veltar pointed at the sensor display showing the enemy ships. "They need food. always need food. They make ships from living things and metal together. Cut food supply, ships get weak. Looked up from her sensors. She's right, Captain. I'm seeing organic conduits running throughout their hulls. If those are supply lines, ... then we cut them, Jake finished. Tony, can we target those conduits if we can get close enough? Our weapons still aren't strong enough to punch through their armor. Veltar spoke again, her crystal skin pulsing with excited colors. Helen listened, then smiled. She says there's another way. The Cathera ship had some technology that might still work. Something about disrupting the connection between the organic and metal parts. Can we get to their ship? It's still in the asteroid field, but the Devourers are between us and it. Jake made his decision. We're going for it. Rick, plot a course to the Cathara ship. Use the asteroids for cover. Sir, that's going to take us right through the middle of the enemy fleet. I know, Tony. Give them everything we have. Keep them busy. The New Horizon dove deeper into the asteroid field, weaving between the floating rocks while Devourer ships pursued them. The human ship was faster and more maneuverable, but the enemies had overwhelming firepower, plasma bolts, and energy. Beams lit up the space around them. Rick flew like a madman, using every trick he knew to keep them alive. The ship shook and groaned as near misses sent shockwaves through the hull. Hull breach on Deck 7, someone reported. Damage control teams responding, came the answer. They reached the dead Cathara ship after 20 minutes of running battle. The alien vessel was still drifting where they had left it, now surrounded by Devourer ships closing in from all sides. How long do you need? Jake asked Veltar. She spoke with Helen quickly. She says if she can get to her ship's main computer, she can activate a signal that will disrupt the Devourer technology, but she needs to be physically connected to the system. That means going back over there. Yes. And Captain, she says, the signal will only work for a short time. Maybe 30 minutes. Jake looked at the tactical display. 30 minutes wasn't much, but it might be enough. Do it. Veltar nodded and headed for the shuttle bay. But she stopped at the door and turned back. Captain Jake, she said, her crystal skin glowing with colors Helen had never seen before. Thank you for everything. Thank us when we're all still alive, Jake replied. Veltar smiled, the first time any of them had seen a Cathara smile. Then she was gone, heading for what might be her last mission. Around them, the Devourer ships were closing in. The real battle was about to begin. All hands, Jake announced, over the ship's communication system. This is your captain. We're about to go up against impossible odds to protect people who can't protect themselves. I won't lie to you. We might not make it home. But we're going to show these monsters what humans do when someone threatens the innocent. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. Let's make them remember this day. Veltar's shuttle was halfway to the dead Cathara ship when space around them exploded with light. A massive Devourer vessel, twice the size of the others, dropped out of hyperspace right in front of the New Horizon. Holy hell, Commander Rick. Sullivan breathed from the helm. That thing is huge. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the new arrival. It was like looking at a floating city made of metal and flesh. Tentacles the size of subway trains writhed along its hull and glowing organic. Ports pulsed with sickly light. Captain Lisa Campbell called from her science station. I'm reading massive energy buildup from that ship. Whatever it's charging, it's big enough to destroy us and everything else in this asteroid field. The communications panel crackled to life. The same grinding metal voice they had heard before filled the bridge, but now it was different. Stronger, more confident. Human vessel. This is Prime Harvester Nexus 7, aboard the Consumption Matrix. You have impressed us with your resistance. We will make your deaths quick as a reward. Jake activated the come. Thanks, but we'll pass on your generous offer. You cannot escape. Your small ship cannot fight the Matrix. Surrender now, and we will harvest your crew cleanly. On our offer. Jake replied, how about you leave our space and never come back? The silence that followed was broken by what might have been mechanical laughter. Amusing, begin the harvest. The giant ship's weapons started charging. Energy readings spiked off the charts. Evasive maneuvers. Tony, everything we have at that monster. The New Horizon twisted between the asteroids as the consumption matrix opened fire. The energy beam that shot from its main weapon was as wide as the human ship was long. It missed, by mere meters. Turning a mountain-sized asteroid into glowing dust, Tony Garcia fired every missile they had at the giant ship. The explosions looked like tiny sparks against its massive hull. "No damage," Captain Tony reported. "That thing's armor is too thick. Our weapons can't even scratch it." Meanwhile, Veltar's shuttle reached the dead Kithara ship. Jake could see it on the tactical display, a tiny dot next to the drifting alien vessel. "Veltar, how long do you need?" Jake asked over the radio. 10 minutes, came her voice, tight with concentration. "Maybe 15. The systems are badly damaged." "You've got it," Jake promised. Though he had no idea how they could survive that long, the consumption matrix was turning to face them directly. Its weapons were charging again, and this time there might not be room to dodge. That's when salvation arrived from an unexpected direction. Captain Bobby Chen shouted from his station. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. "It's a human fleet." Jake spun to look at the display. Ship after ship was appearing on the sensors. Human ships. Big ones. The lead vessel was massive, easily matching the consumption matrix in size. Its hull was sleek and gray, bristling with weapons. Jake recognized the design immediately. "That's the Constitution," he breathed. Admiral Patricia Hayes' flagship. The fleet communication channel opened, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral Hayes aboard the Constitution. New Horizon, you look like you could use some help." Jake had never been so happy to hear another human voice. "Admiral, we have alien refugees aboard and hostile forces attacking. The big one is their command ship." "Copy that, Captain. All ships, engage the enemy." Show them what happens when they threaten human vessels. The space battle that followed was like nothing Jake had ever seen. The human fleet spread out through the asteroid field, using the rocks for cover, just as the New Horizon had done. But these were warships, built for fighting. The Constitution went straight for the consumption matrix. The two giant ships faced each other like ancient sea monsters, trading massive energy blasts that lit up the darkness. Smaller human ships swarmed the Devourer fleet. Jake watched in amazement as human fighters danced between the enemy vessels, their weapons finding weak spots that bigger guns couldn't hit. But the Devourers were not easy opponents. Their ships were tough and their weapons were powerful. Several human vessels took heavy damage, and Jake saw at least 2 small ships explode under concentrated fire. Admiral Jake called over the fleet channel. "We have a Kithara survivor, working on a way to disrupt their technology. If she can activate it, it might give us an advantage." "Understood. All ships. Protect the New Horizon. Whatever they're doing, we need to buy them time." The human fleet formed a protective circle around Jake's ship, holding off the Devourer attacks while Veltar worked frantically aboard the dead alien vessel. "Veltar status report," Jake called. "Almost ready," she replied, her voice strained. "The connection is difficult. These systems were not meant to work together." Another Devourer ship exploded under the combined fire of 3 human cruisers, but more were coming. Jake could see reinforcements arriving, smaller vessels that moved fast and attacked in groups. "They're trying to board us," Tony reported as strange pods launched from the nearest Devourer ship. "Boarding pods incoming. Point defense. Take them out." The New Horizon's defensive guns swiveled to target the approaching pods. Most were destroyed before they could reach the ship, but 2 got through. "Hull breach on deck 5, came the damage report.
"Hostiles aboard."
Jake grabbed his sidearm. "Tony, take a team and deal with the boarders. I'll handle the bridge." Through the chaos of battle, Jake could hear fighting inside his own ship. The Devourers had sent some kind of boarding troops, and they were trying to reach the Kithara survivors. When something unexpected happened, instead of hiding in fear, several of the recovered Kithara moved to help defend the ship. They might have been weak and still healing, but they were not helpless. Jake saw one of them, a male whose crystal skin was glowing bright blue, working with engineer Ben Rodriguez to seal off compromised sections. Another was helping. Dr. Peterson moved the wounded to safety. These people who had been running and hiding for so long had found something worth fighting for. Captain Veltar's voice came over the radio, filled with excitement. I did it.
Ow.
Disruption signal is active. Immediately, Jake could see the effect on his sensors. The Devourer ships began to slow down, their movements becoming clumsy and uncoordinated. All ships, Admiral Hayes broadcast the enemy vessels are showing system failures. Press the attack.
What?
The human fleet took advantage of the confusion. Ship after ship targeted the struggling Devourer vessels, and this time, their weapons found their marks. Explosions bloomed throughout. The asteroid field as enemy ships lost power and drifted helplessly. But the consumption matrix was different. It was larger and more advanced than the other ships, and it was fighting off the disruption signal. The big one is adapting, Lisa reported. It's compensating for the interference. Prime Harvester Nexus 7's voice came over the communications. Again, but now it sounded different. Angry. Impossible. The prey species should not possess this technology. All units, destroy the signal source. Every remaining Devourer ship turned toward the dead Cathara vessel where Veltar was still working. They began moving in that direction, ignoring the human fleet attacking them. They're going after Veltar, Jake realized. Rick, get us between them and that ship. Sir, we can't fight all of them. We don't have to fight them. We just have. To stop them, the New Horizon moved to block the Devourer ships, taking heavy fire from multiple directions. The ship's shields failed, and hull breaches opened on 3 different decks. Hull integrity at 60%. Bobby reported Jake was about to order another attack when Veltar's voice came over the radio one more time. Captain Jake. Signal is at maximum power. But I cannot leave the ship. Someone must stay to keep it working. Jake understood immediately. If Veltar left her position, the disruption would fail, and the Devourers would recover. Veltar, we're coming to get you. No time. Devourer is breaking through. Signal will not last long anyway. You must use it now. Looked around as damaged. Bridge's crew was battered but still fighting. Human fleet was winning. They needed more time to finish off the enemy. Time that Veltar was giving them by staying behind. Admiral Hayes, Jake called. The disruption won't last much longer. We need to end this now. Understood, Captain. All ships concentrate fire on the command vessel. Take it down. The entire human fleet turned their weapons on the consumption. Matrix. The massive ship tried to fight back, but the disruption signal was affecting its systems. Its movements were slow, its aim poor, under the combined assault of dozens of human warships. Even the mighty consumption matrix began to buckle. Armor plating cracked and peeled away. Internal explosions sent chunks of metal and flesh spinning into space. Prime Harvester is abandoning ship, Lisa reported. I'm reading multiple escape pods launching. The command ship listed heavily to one side, its weapons going silent one by one. Then, in a flash of light that outshone the local star, it exploded. The remaining Devourer ships, seeing their leader destroyed, began to retreat. They moved slowly, their systems still affected by Veltar's signal, but they were leaving. All enemy vessels withdrawing, Admiral Hayes announced. Cease fire. Damage reports. All ships. Jake slumped in his captain's chair, exhausted. Had won. Against impossible odds, they had actually won. But the victory felt incomplete. Veltar was still aboard the dying Cathara ship, maintaining the disruption signal even though the battle was over. Captain Jake Morrison's shuttle raced through the debris field toward the dying Cathara ship. Behind him, Sergeant Tony Garcia and Engineer Ben Rodriguez checked their equipment one more time. Ship's power is failing fast, Ben reported, watching his scanner. Maybe 10 minutes before total system collapse. Then we better work fast, Jake replied. Pushing the shuttle's engines to maximum, the Cathara vessel looked worse than before. Parts of its hull were glowing red hot, and atmosphere was venting from several new holes. The ship was tearing itself apart. There, Tony pointed. Emergency airlock on the port side looks like it's still working. Jake brought the shuttle alongside the alien ship and locked onto the airlock. The connection held, but barely. Move fast, Jake ordered. The ship won't last much longer. They entered the Cathara vessel through corridors filled with smoke and failing lights. The walls were cracking, and strange alien writing flickered on damaged displays. Veltar Jake called into his radio. "We're coming for you. Where are you?" Voice came back weak and full of static. "Command center, but dangerous. Systems overloading." They found her at the ship's central control station. Her hands pressed against a panel that pulsed with blue-white light. Her crystal skin was almost transparent, and she looked exhausted. Veltar Jake rushed to her side. "Come on, we're getting you out of here." She shook her head weakly. "Cannot leave. Signal must continue, or devourers will recover."
Oh.
The battle's over. They're retreating. Not all gone. Some still hiding in asteroid field. Signal keeps them weak. Ben checked his scanner and nodded grimly. "She's right, Captain. I'm detecting several Devourer ships still in the area. They're damaged, but not destroyed." Jake looked at the control panel Veltar was connected to. The alien technology was completely beyond human understanding, but he could see it was falling apart. "How long can this thing keep working?" "Not long," Veltar admitted. "Maybe 1 hour. Then ship dies and signal stops. Then we need to move." "The signal generator to our ship." Veltar looked at him with surprise. "Not possible. Technology too different. Would take days to make work on human ship." "Then we don't move the generator," Jake decided. "We move the ship." Tony stared at him. "Sir, this ship is falling apart. The engines are dead." "Then we give it new engines," Jake replied. He activated his radio. "New Horizon, this is the captain. I need you to dock with the Kithara ship. We're taking it with us. Commander Rick." Sullivan's voice came back immediately. "Sir, that ship is about to explode. Docking with it could destroy us both, and don't let it explode. Get our best engineers over here now. We're going to keep this ship alive long enough to get everyone home." What followed was the most desperate engineering effort any of them had ever attempted. Human and Cathara technology had never been designed to work together, but somehow they had to make it happen. Ben Rodriguez took charge of the technical side, working with surviving Kithara engineers who had recovered enough to help. Dr. Amy Peterson treated Veltar and the other aliens, using portable human medical equipment to keep them stable. The biggest problem was power. The Cathara ship was dying because its power systems had been damaged beyond repair, but the New Horizon had power to spare. "We can run cables between the ships," Ben explained to Jake. "Use our power to keep their life support and the signal generator working." "How long will that take?" 4 hours minimum, maybe 6. Jake looked at his watch. They didn't have that kind of time. That's when Admiral Patricia Hayes contacted them directly. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Hayes. We're detecting increased Devourer activity in the outer system. More ships are coming."
Ow.
Jake felt his heart sink. "How many?" "At least 50 ships. Maybe more. They'll be here in 3 hours. 3 hours to repair 2 different types of technology and somehow make them work together." It was impossible, but Jake had learned something important over the past week. Sometimes impossible just meant you hadn't found the right way yet. "Admiral, we need more time. Can your fleet hold off the Devourers?" "We'll do our best, Captain." "But that's a lot of ships." Jake looked around at his mixed crew of humans and Kithara working frantically to save both ships. An idea began to form in his mind. "Ben, what if we don't try to repair their ship? What if we just move the parts we need?" "Sir, the signal generator? Can we remove it from their ship and install it on ours?" Ben thought for a moment. "Maybe. But we'd need to understand how it works. And we'd need someone who knows Kithara technology to operate it." Jake turned to Veltar, who was still connected to the control panel, but listening to everything. "Veltar, if we move the signal generator to our ship, can you make it work?" Her crystal skin flickered with tired colors. "Yes, but will be difficult. Your ship not designed for Cathara systems. We'll make it work," Jake promised. "Ben, long to move the generator?" 2 hours, if everything goes right. 3 if we run into problems." "Do it." The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. Human and Kithara engineers worked side by side, cutting through bulkheads and rerouting power systems. They had to create connections between technologies that had evolved on different worlds, using different principles. Meanwhile, Admiral Hayes and her fleet prepared for the approaching Devourer reinforcements. The human ships spread out through the asteroid field, setting up defensive positions. New contact, Lisa Campbell reported from the New Horizons bridge. It's huge. It's bigger than anything we've seen before. Jake looked at the tactical display. From where he was working in the Cathara ship's control room, the new contact was massive, easily twice the size of the consumption matrix they had destroyed. Admiral Hayes, Jake called. Are you seeing this? Copy that, Captain. That's what we call a Harvester Prime. Planet killer class. If that thing gets into human space... She didn't need to finish. Jake understood. This wasn't just about saving the Kithara anymore. This was about stopping an enemy that could destroy entire worlds. Signal generator is ready, Ben announced. But we need Veltar connected to make it work properly. Jake helped Veltar disconnect from the Kithara, ship systems, and move to the makeshift control station they had built aboard the New Horizon. The Kithara woman was weak but determined. Will the signal be strong enough to affect that big ship? Jake asked. Veltar studied the readings on her new control panel. Yes, but signal will be much stronger now. Will affect all Devourer ships and system. How long can you maintain it? As long as necessary, she replied simply. The Devourer fleet arrived exactly when Admiral Hayes had predicted. 53 ships led by the massive Harvester Prime. They spread out through space like a plague, their biomechanical hulls pulsing. With sick light, all ships, Admiral Hayes broadcast, engage at will, protect the New Horizon at all costs. The battle that followed dwarfed the earlier fight. Energy beams crisscrossed space, turning asteroids to vapor and lighting up the darkness. Human ships fought with everything they had, but they were badly outnumbered. That's when Veltar activated the new signal generator. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every Devourer ship in the system suddenly slowed down their movements, becoming clumsy and uncoordinated. The Harvester Prime itself began to list to one side, its massive bulk no longer under full control. It's working, Admiral Hayes announced. All ships press the attack while they're vulnerable. The human fleet didn't waste the opportunity. Ship after ship targeted the struggling Devourer vessels, their weapons finding weak spots that had. It's been impossible to hit before, but the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Other ships began appearing on the sensors. It's not human ships, and not Devourers. Captain Lisa called excitedly. I'm reading multiple alien vessels approaching. It's different species, but they're all targeting the Devourers. Jake looked at Veltar, who was smiling despite her exhaustion. Other survivors, she explained. Refugees from worlds the Devourers destroyed. They have been hiding, waiting for chance to fight back. And now they have it, Jake realized. Ship after ship emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Species that had lost their worlds to the Devourers died. Survivors who had been scattered and broken. All coming together for one final battle, under the combined assault of dozens of different species. The Devourer fleet began to collapse. The Harvester Prime, crippled by Veltar's signal, became the target of every ship in the Allied fleet. When it finally exploded, the blast could be seen from 3 star systems away. All enemy vessels destroyed or fleeing, Admiral Hayes reported. Stand down from general quarters. Jake slumped in his chair, exhausted. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had not only saved the Cathara survivors, but had struck a blow against the Devourers that would be remembered across the galaxy. Captain Jake Veltar said softly, Thank you. For everything. Thank us? Jake looked around at his mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. You're the one who made this possible, Veltar replied, her crystal skin glowing with colors Jake had never seen before. You showed us that there are still people in galaxy worth fighting for. People who help strangers. People who never give up. Over the following weeks, as the New Horizon limped back toward human space, Jake watched something amazing happen. The surviving Kithara didn't ask to be taken to some distant refuge world. They asked to stay with the humans who had saved them.